Welcome back to Futr.Azn, where we interview local Asian entrepreneurs and creatives here in Vancouver, BC. Our next guest is the other half of Futr.Azn, our videographer and the video editor and sound editor for the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Nathalie De Los Santos. I am a writer, creative, also videographer, photographer, Jill of all trades in Vancouver.
And here we are at the, oh my god, is it Vine Arts Society?
Yeah, Vine Arts Society.
And it's for the sad play issue launch party for the magazine that Nathalie is actually a part of. What did you contribute to this magazine?
It's a poetry post piece called Queer Coded, and it's like I use syntax in this poem to talk about code switching as a queer gamer girl growing up.
Nice. Yeah, and you actually wrote a book about that, right, too?
Yeah, so maybe how long has it been? In 2019, I wrote a book called Hasa Manana, and it's about a girl who grew up in the 90s, so a very thinly veiled account of my life in Vancouver. And it's available at the Vancouver Public Library in their indie author collection.
So, yeah, could you let us know, what you do? Because she does a lot of things. She's very creative, very intelligent. Can you let our guests know, all the things that you're involved in, what you like to do?
Yeah, so, I think the number one thing people know me as is a community organizer and a writer. I work a lot with Filipino culture, particularly Filipino Fairy Tales, folklore, and mythology. And I'm a big fantasy nerd. I'm writing a Filipino fantasy novel as we speak. And other things I do is I co-organize the first ever Filipino Book Festival. I run the page PilipinxPages, which highlights a Filipino author every day.
How long have you been doing that?
I feel like I've been doing this all my life, but I started to take it for real in the pandemic, actually, because when the world shut down, I had more time to read. And I really wanted to reconnect with my roots because I didn't know very much about where my family came from or Filipino culture. So while the world shut down, I just started reading books. I started contacting authors, being like, your book's really cool. And that's how I started to make a lot of my first friends, because I was one of the first few people who would often find these books and read them and actually review them. So that always made people really happy. So I actually kind of had a positive experience in the pandemic because that's where this all started. It gave me the time to kind of slow down and be able to do this work.
That's awesome. I find that a lot of creative people actually thrive during the pandemic.
Yeah.
When it comes to community organizing or writing books, what are some challenges that you come across?
I think it's just finding the time to create because we're all so busy surviving, right? And a lot of creativity requires you to meditate and kind of be in the zone. So just finding that free time to do that in between just work is the challenge. But I feel like for me, I just kind of started to prioritize it more the best that I can. How that looks different for a lot of people. For me, it looks like writing every morning. What
inspired you to get into community organizing and into writing?
Yeah, so I feel like I've been writing all my life, basically. But what got me super into it was realizing that there's a lot of work to be done in terms of a lot of Filipino books were not well reviewed. And if you ask somebody what does Filipino-Canadian literature look like, they might not be able to answer you. But I'm able to see what it looks like because I've been doing so much research. So basically, I wanted to kind of just increase representation and that understanding because growing up I never saw Filipinos or someone who looked like myself in media, and now it's getting a little bit better. But the reason why it is getting better is it takes our community to uplift each other and talk about each other's work. So,
as you can see, we're in a different location because it's getting loud in there. It is a party, so yeah. Are there any new projects or anything that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so at the end of this month, on July 31st to August 9th, I'll be at the Lambda Literary Retreat, which is really exciting because my mentor is the New York Times bestseller author Aiden Thomas. I absolutely admire their work, so I'm really excited to study underneath them in this retreat. And beyond that, I hope I do get my fantasy novel published because I've been working on it forever.
Yeah. How long have you been working at it?
Since 2019, although I took a 2-year rest period after I had edited a few times first, just because life happened, and so it seems longer. But I think there's a bit of creative rest you have to do once after you finish a big project like that, and then you can come back to it and see it like in new, fresh eyes, being like, okay, that sucked, and I'm gonna change it.
And I think it'll be good too, the fact that you are going to this retreat. I think it'll maybe improve what you've already worked on too.
Besides being published in Sad magazine today, I just got an acceptance letter from the League of Canadian Poets, which is like, I was shocked to see that acceptance.
Yo, League of Canadian Poets.
It's funny because I consider myself a genre writer, but this year all my accepts in terms of like writing have been poetry. So someone called me a poet the other day, and it felt really surreal.
Well, like, I mean, you did write that very beautiful and like touching poem after the Lapu-Lapu tragedy too. So you are a poet.
Yeah.
You just didn't know it.
Well,
Fucking corny.
yeah, no, it's crazy because like when I was the poem that you're talking about, it's called Borrowed Breath. It's in response to one of our friends who was directly affected by Lapu-Lapu Day. CBC did this interview with me, and then I just thought, okay, it's just going to be like on Canadian air, but they also told me it was like on NPR, and I was like, when? How? And so people were like messaging me like, oh, I heard you on the radio, and I was like, okay. Like, and it was hard because I was grieving also, like, to receive all of that too, but I was like, what is going on? Usually I kind of just write in my room alone. So I was like, oh, cool. People are like, I mean, it was a really sad reason why people were connecting, but it felt also healing to my grief journey that we were able to connect. So yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, like, and that's the cool thing about Natalie too. She's a very great writer, and she'll submit to things, but she's very humble too. But yo, I swear, like, Globe and Mail be hitting her up, NPR, CBC, like just everybody. And yeah, she's usually surprised, like, oh.
This year had a lot of good energy, right? But like beforehand, I was like just kind of like hustling as a writer. Like last year, I attended SFU Writers Studio, which helped me kind of get over my imposter syndrome because they just showed me like the different parts of writing, the business of writing, and then. Yeah, afterwards, because I felt like in that period of time, I wasn't really putting myself out there as much. Like I was. Like basically supporting other people. Like I put on the first ever Filipino book festival, and like I went to the Filipino-American Book Festival, and so usually I was like promoting other people's work. And I guess when I graduated SFU Writers Studio over the winter time, I was like, I'm just gonna try submitting to places, and then it turned into this year, which is really, I mean, I guess maybe the lesson from that is like, just take the time to like self-develop. You don't always have to put on the internet. Take that 1 year, and then put yourself out there, and then you'll suddenly start getting published, I guess.
Yeah, like, I mean, the fact that when you put out the work, it's coming from a genuine place. So, yeah, it's well-deserved recognition, I'd say.
Thank you. I mean, like, I feel like it was a labor of love last year with my close group of writer friends, too. Like, that's why I don't think it felt like work, because it came from a good community of people, and it wasn't, like, competitive at all. We were all just, like, trying to help each other out.
Speaking of community, as an Asian writer and community organizer, how important is it for you to represent your heritage and build community?
It's really important for me because, like, growing up in Canada, I didn't see myself in books. I'm only recently seeing, like, movies and comic books and books that show, like, Asian representation. And every time I see it now, it heals my inner child. And, like, I remember the feeling when I was in the pandemic, discovering like my roots and my history more, like understanding what my parents had gone through and having more empathy for them. Like for the longest time, I had like, just like an up and down relationship with my parents, but learning what happened in the Philippines and all the sort of like, colonization and all the injustices that happened to them. And even just immigrating. I've never moved from like Vancouver, right?
Oh God, I know, like I think about that all the time too. I think about, being our parents' age when they immigrated here, like, and try to put myself in their shoes. I'm like, I can't picture taking that huge risk of like, I'm gonna leave my motherland, go to like a whole different foreign country and like start from scratch and just like build from there. Like they really had to, believe in themselves to just take that risk and take that jump. And like, we could be so bratty as kids, like, like, oh, I wish this and that, but like, yo, they were starting from scratch and like learning a new language and their intention was for a better life for us.
Yeah, and that's what I learned too. Like, for instance, I learned my dad came here as an exchange student, and he was drawn by like JFK's charisma and like that kind of cheery nature of America. But when JFK was assassinated, him and his roommate stood in line for hours at the memorial waiting to say goodbye to him at the White House. And after that, they were like, oh, America kind of sucks. So they moved, they moved up to Canada to become nursing assistants. And like they studied in like Ontario. And then my dad went up to Kapuskasing to work for a little bit as well. And I have a funny story about that is I met another performer and she was talking about how her grandma was in Kapuskasing. I'm like, it's a really small town and they're about the same age. And we found out that they like were friends, which is really crazy.
Where is this?
Kapuskasing, I think, is really North Ontario. It's like very cold, very cold. And then my mom, she didn't even want to come here. Like I wrote about her story in the anthology of Dargat, an anthology of Filipino-Canadian writing. Is like she was going to go to college and finish it, but thieves stole her tuition, and like basically her parents were like, your sister can sponsor you, and that's how she came here. And so I think about the story my mom told me, like when she first got here, she didn't unpack her suitcase for a whole year because she thought she would be going back to her parents. And so learning about like what your parents had gone through and like the system that they were in, like given that like my parents came here in the 60s and 70s was when there was that recession because of the Marcos era and those types of things. So like the politics and the history of it really affects your personal life too. Yeah.
Wow. So it's very important.
Yeah. No, yes, definitely. It's not just for myself and the younger gen, like how I said, it's important to see representation, but I'm like, I think it's important for my parents to see representation because they didn't have it either. Like they were too busy surviving. And I remember when, it's funny, I remember when I published, like I wrote a story for my dad and his like immigration experience. And at first he was freaked out. He was like, oh, that's weird. And then when I published my mom's story in this big like anthology that's getting a lot of attention, he's like, where's my book? And actually, so me and him, I know, right? Classic dad behavior. And like, me and him went on to co-write a book together during a 3-day novel writing challenge, and we're still working on it. But I'm like, I love how my dad just shifted gears. But you know what? I think it's because, again, they were too busy surviving. They didn't see stories like them until now. So it's also important for our elder gen, too.
Well, didn't your sister and your dad write like 1 or 2 cookbooks, Filipino cookbooks?
Yeah, so my sister's a big food blogger. I'm just talking about whole family in this. My sister's a food blogger. She runs the site Gastrofork, and we've been a sister duo where I go out and take photos for her and drink while I'm out. And her and my dad, actually, how their blog got traction in the early 2000s is my sister and my dad used to do YouTube videos together of him cooking like Filipino recipes that are easy, like you can make it 30 minutes or less. And it was one of the first videos that was not in Tagalog, like it was in English, so that's why I think a lot of people started watching him at the time. And then from that, him and my sister made this cookbook together, Filipino Cooking Made Easy, which I took to the Filipino-American Book Festival last year, and it sold out, which is just amazing for my dad. Like,
there you go, Dad. There's your book.
Yeah, there you go. He wants a book about his life, though.
And, okay, but no, you can point out to him, Dad, it was a bestseller. It sold out.
Yeah. Well, no, I did, and he was bragging on his Facebook, like.
Of course, on Facebook.
Like the boomer app.
Well, that's where it matters for them.
It really is.
That's where you put the clout for that. Yeah, okay. Do you have any advice for younger Asian entrepreneurs or Asian creatives?
For me, the biggest life lesson for me was to just slow down and rest. I know there's a lot of hustle culture, and you're eager to start this thing and keep going and keep going and keep going. But there's in my case, when I took the SFU Writer Studio, I was self-developing with people I trusted, and we were just in the space where I didn't feel the need to post it on the internet or submit it anywhere. All I felt like doing was showing my friends and being like, hey, is this cool or not? And also taking adequate rest, because I used to be a workaholic, and now I'm just I will actually do nothing on a day. And that do nothing time, I still think about my art in the back of my head, so it's percolating. And I'm I know it's, there's a need to keep up, but the advice I'd give emergent entrepreneurs is take the time to rest for yourself, because you're gonna find the best ideas while you're frolicking in a meadow or when you're riding a bike. I swear, it's like that's why you have to do it. You have to remind yourself to do it. Drink water also.
Yeah, that's a good one, and also it's good so you don't just burn out. Yeah, is there anything else new that you're working on that you want to mention?
Yeah, I have a couple other like publications coming up, but the one that I'm most excited about is I'm putting together a magazine called Ginger and Smoke, and it features Filipino-Canadian authors that write mythology and works that are based by folklore, fairy tales, mythology, and I just finished reading all the submissions and they're all great. Just knowing who is out there in the Filipino-Canadian scene who are writing about mythology has just been so interesting and so awesome to know that there's more people out there.
That's so cool. It's like basically you working on that is building and connecting that community. It's very specific community too. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And where can people find you, like on social media and online?
Oh yeah, for sure. So you can follow me at everywhere. Social media is PilipinxPages, so PilipinX pages, and then you can find my personal writing and all that jazz at natdls.com.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's go party.